The Incredibles movies are super fun, but the story of the older heroes in this universe are actually very tragic.
Gazerbeam.
Did you know that almost all of them suffered completely terrible fates? And the main culprit behind it all was Syndrome and his Project Kronos, whose goal was to lure retired superheroes into a fake secret mission on an island where an Omnidroid robot would already be waiting for the hero, ready to take them down and evolve more with every single fight. A good part of the superheroes from the older generation, friends and co-workers of Mr. Incredible, were eliminated during Project Kronos. That seems to have been the case with Everseer, a telepath who appears on the list of eliminated targets in Syndrome's computer. But as incredible as it sounds, he could still have major importance in The Incredibles 3. That's because, according to Incredibles comic books, Everseer's brain was preserved by a supervillain named Zarek and used as an energy source for a machine, since Everseer had mental abilities. The comics aren't considered canon, but nothing stops Disney from reusing that idea in The Incredibles 3, which would be such a shame for the character. Just imagine a part of your body being used as an instrument for evil after you've already died. Those same comics also indicate that Everseer was able to foresee the future and even predicted his own death 10 years before it happened. That could easily be brought into the movie canon because it would be amazing and terrifying if his brain were used as a device to see the future in the third film of the saga. Everseer wasn't the only superhero who met a dark fate. Today, you're going to discover what happened to the heroes of this universe and how all of that could be shown in The Incredibles 3. So, grab your popcorn and get ready. This is the start of another Cinewave. Among all these heroes, Gazerbeam had one of the worst fates possible. He was found by Mr. Incredible on the list of targets eliminated by Syndrome's Omnidroids and was one of the losses that hit the protagonist the hardest, since the two of them were close friends. After superheroes were made illegal, Gazerbeam fought to try to make them legal again, but he did this under his secret identity, which was as a lawyer. That was most likely how Syndrome managed to track him down and lure him into the fake mission. The big difference between Gazerbeam and the other heroes who were taken to that mission is that he had already figured it out that it was a trap and even managed to discover the password to Syndrome's computer. Before dying, he hid inside a cave and used his power to shoot laser beams from his eyes to carve the password onto the cave walls, something that helped Mr. Incredible a lot in the first movie. The saddest part is that from what it looks like, nobody ever found Gazerbeam's body before Mr. Incredible, which means the Omnidroid didn't actually go there to finish him off. Gazerbeam must have died from the bleeding wounds he had already received, but that could have taken minutes, hours, or even days. Just imagine how much he must have suffered before finally passing away. There was supposed to be a flashback in The Incredibles 2 showing more of the friendship between Mr. Incredible and Gazerbeam, but it was cut from the movie. That's another thing that could be reused in The Incredibles 3, and if that happens, a lot of people are going to cry in theaters. Gammajack is one of the superheroes from the older generation who stands out the most because of his arrogant personality, which he shows during his interview for the National Supers Agency, or NSA, where he makes it clear that he doesn't really value human life and treats his superhero duties like a game. And as if that wasn't enough, he was one of the most powerful supers. In the threat classifications for the Omnidroids, he was ranked just below Mr. Incredible, and that's no coincidence, since his power was the ability to cause radioactive explosions. He even managed to defeat Omnidroid 5, but was eventually eliminated by Omnidroid 6. Since Syndrome's robots adapt after each defeat, we can imagine that Omnidroid 6 was built with materials resistant to radiation, like lead. Some fans theorize that Gammajack could still be alive and will return as the villain of The Incredibles 3, which would be absolutely spectacular. And it's not even that impossible, since he was classified as extremely intelligent in the NSA files and could have easily come up with a plan to outsmart Syndrome. Gammajack would become a top-tier villain. If you also want to see that happen in The Incredibles 3, drop a comment below with #villain. We have some idea of what happened to several heroes, but Plasmabolt is a case apart. What happened to her remains a real mystery, since her fate never appeared on the list of heroes eliminated by Project Kronos, and no other concrete clue about her fate was ever shown. But anyone who reads the NSA files on this heroine could come up with two possibilities. She was obsessed with outdoor life, and, in her civilian identity, worked as a park ranger so she could be closer to nature. So the first possibility is that after superheroes were outlawed, Plasmabolt abandoned society and started living in a forest. The second possibility is way worse. Since Plasmabolt was obsessed with outdoor life, she might have been committed to a psychiatric institution. An obsession isn't just some silly little thing, but rather a sick condition, and dangerous, especially when we're talking about supers. In either of these possibilities, Plasmabolt has a big chance of showing up in The Incredibles 3 if Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl discover where she is and decide to get in touch with her. Another one we have no idea about is Fireronic, a hero who only appeared in The Incredibles 2. Before that, he had only been mentioned when Syndrome appeared in public and someone mistook him for Fireronic. In the sequel, it's revealed that he and Gazerbeam were friends of Mr. Dever, Winston Dever's father. That man was killed during a robbery. Neither of the two heroes could stop it because the tragedy happened after the vigilantes had already been outlawed. Fortunately, he wasn't found on the list of heroes eliminated by the Omnidroids, but we also don't have solid evidence of what actually happened to him. Theoretically, Fireronic could have started a family and might be working in some other job now, but it's strange to think that's the case when we remember that Mr. Dever was a huge supporter of superheroes and against the anti-vigilante law, just like Gazerbeam. Since Fireronic was a close friend of both of them, he should have had the same opinion about the issue. So why didn't he show up in The Incredibles 2 when Winston Dever, the son of his late friend, launched a project to legalize superheroes again? He should have been the first one to show up, unless he couldn't. All we can do is wonder what might have stopped him. Maybe it was some kind of illness. Since no Omnidroid ever attacked him, nature itself is one of the few things that could have made him incapable of returning to action. But since superheroes were legalized again in The Incredibles 2, it's very possible that he'll at least appear in the third movie to congratulate Mr. Incredible for getting back into being a superhero. Universal Man is another one who shows up on the long list of those eliminated. He was the very first one, and for two reasons. First, Syndrome must have had a super easy time finding him. Unlike the other supers, Universal Man didn't have a secret identity and lived 100% of his life as a hero. When superheroes were banned by the government, he must have gone crazy and lost all sense of purpose in his life. In other words, not only was he easy to track down, but it must have also been easy to convince him to take part in the secret mission without him suspecting a thing. And as if that didn't already make him the perfect target, Universal Man was also easy to defeat. His ability was to manipulate the density of his own body, which could have been really powerful if he had been able to use his full potential. He could lower his density until he reached a gaseous state, doing things like flying or phasing through walls, but he could also increase it until he became a black hole. That would have made him invincible, but it would have also destroyed the entire planet, so he was never able to use his power at maximum level. And to make things even worse, the NSA classified his intelligence as extremely low, which doesn't match at all with such a complex power, one that requires a lot of cleverness and creativity. So, yeah, he probably wasn't much of a challenge for the Omnidroid. If Universal Man were smart, he'd definitely hit that subscribe button to get all our videos about your favorite cartoons. One who was already down bad before and got even worse after superheroes were outlawed was Hypershock, a super who could cause seismic tremors. The problem with this guy was that he was addicted to alcohol to the point where he actually showed up to his NSA interview hungover. You know, when someone drinks so much that they feel sick the next day? It's very likely that he even fought villains and tried to save people while in that state, which is totally dangerous. And just imagine how disappointed he must have been when heroes were outlawed. His addiction must have gotten a whole lot worse. It's not hard to believe that Hypershock got himself into a few bar fights because of this, which would be a very good explanation for why he was found by Syndrome. He even managed to destroy the Omnidroid version X3, but was then eliminated by its successor, the Omnidroid version X4. But even if Hypershock hadn't died, he probably still would have been living a miserable life, still addicted to alcohol, unemployed because he couldn't hold down a job, maybe even committed to an asylum just like Plasmabolt. Peeping Tom is another who, although apparently still alive, probably isn't living his best life. He was a superhero with X-ray vision, but he was one of the first to face a lawsuit when public opinion about super started to plummet. The so-called hero was accused of using his ability to see through anything to look under people's clothes, which completely destroyed his reputation. So, he'll most likely never return to fighting crime, even now that vigilantes are back in action. On the contrary, Peeping Tom will spend the rest of his life hiding and terrified that his identity will be exposed. We don't know if he really used his powers in the wrong way, or if it was all just a false accusation. We also don't know how the lawsuit ended, but if they somehow managed to prove that Peeping Tom used his abilities for something bad, it's even possible that he was arrested and is still behind bars to this very day. Besides all those heroes whose lives were destroyed by Syndrome or by the outlawing of superheroes, there were also some who died for a very specific reason: capes. In the Incredibles universe, the cape is a terribly dangerous accessory that has already caused the end of countless heroes, something that Edna Mode explains in the most iconic scene of the first movie. Thunderman, Stratigale, Metaman, Dynaguy, and Splashdown, all of them were powerful heroes who lost their lives because their capes got snagged somewhere during flight or were grabbed by something. And that, of course, made Syndrome's job a whole lot easier. We've left 2 awesome videos on your screen. Just pick one of them. Thanks, and see you next time.